The first crackle came just after midnight, a thin ribbon of sound slipping through the quiet, like a memory that refused to sleep. The old radio on the kitchen shelf had been silent for years, a heavy brown relic with dulled dials and a cracked fabric grill. Nobody touched it anymore. It was part furniture, part ghost. Emma was rinsing teacups when she heard it. A soft hiss, a stutter, then a bright, tinny chord, as if someone on the other side of time had found the right wire and tugged. She froze, water drumming her wrists, eyes locked on the radio. "Mom?" Her son, Oliver, shuffled in, hair wild from the couch. "Did you turn that on?" Emma shook her head. "It doesn't even work." As if offended, the radio popped again, a brighter sputter, and the orange dial light flickered to life. Faintly, a woman's voice drifted through the static warm, careful, the kind of voice that leans toward a microphone and hopes someone is listening. "If you can hear me, I'm trying. Just one song for you." Emma's breath snagged. The voice wasn't familiar until it was. Not as it had sounded lately, thinned by years and illness, but as it might have decades ago. Bright, strong, sure. It sounded like her mother. Oliver's eyes widened. "Grandma?" The radio decided to breathe. Strands of music threaded through the hiss, an old melody Emma half remembered from a nursery that smelled of talc and starch. It was the lullaby her mother used to hum while setting tablecloths to dry. No lyrics, only a tune that curled and settled like steam from a kettle. Emma turned the volume knob slowly. The dial fought her at first, stiff from disuse, then loosened with a click. The melody grew clearer, wobbly, distant, but unmistakably hers. Not a broadcast, not a station, a recording? From where? "Mom," Oliver whispered. "Is this real?" Emma's hands trembled on the counter. The radio had barely survived the house move. They'd kept it because her mother insisted, "The kitchen looks empty without it." When her mother passed, the radio stayed for the same reason. Empty things sometimes keep us company. Now the empty thing spoke. The song faded. Static swelled like an inhale before rain. Then, the same warm voice, close enough to touch. "Emma, if you're there one day, don't be afraid. I left something for you. I just needed time." The kitchen blurred. Emma leaned against the sink to steady herself. Her mother, alive and sound, speaking from a place Emma could not name. Oliver reached for her hand and held tight. "Did she know this would happen?" he asked. "I don't know," Emma said. "But she always said the radio only plays when the house is listening." A laugh she hadn't expected escaped her. It was something her mother would have said, part poetry, part prank, part dare to believe. Emma had spent a lifetime filing those lines under Mom's sayings, never thinking one would come back with a melody attached. The radio crackled again. The dial light pulsed, brighter now, as if the voice on the other side had found courage. "If you're still listening, try the back panel. The screws are stubborn. Like me." Emma and Oliver shared a look. The back panel. The radio had a thin masonite board, 4 rusted screws, and a paper label brown to sepia. She'd dusted around it for years and never thought to pry. Why would she? The device was dead. Or so she had told herself. The way people tell themselves a story often enough that it becomes furniture. Oliver fetched a small screwdriver from the utility drawer. "Should we?" Emma nodded, throat tight. Carefully. As the first screw loosened with a squeal, the radio filled with static-like wind across a field. Between the gusts, a few syllables limped through, "Not yet. Wait for the chime at 3. Then silence." The dial light dimmed to a faint ember and went out. They stood in the hush that follows a miracle, the sort that leaves you unsure where to put your hands. Oliver swallowed. 3? As in 3 a.m.? Emma glanced at the kitchen clock. 12:17. "We have time," she said, though the words trembled. Her mother had never been imprecise. If she said 3, she meant it. The woman had measured life in precise tablespoons, in minutes between oven checks, in the exact number of turns a lid should take before it sealed. Emma slid a chair beside the radio, and Saturday, Oliver pulled another chair next to hers, screwdriver across his knees like a baton awaiting the conductor's cue. On the table lay a photo from their last holiday. 3 faces leaning into one another against too bright Sunday. The middle face, Emma's mother, was laughing. "I kept it because the kitchen looked empty without it," Emma murmured, repeating the line to herself like a password. Maybe the house had finally remembered it. She looked at the radio, at the little eye of the dial that had glowed and gone dark. "If this is you, Mom, we're here. We're listening." Outside, the night pressed its ear to the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a late car sighed past. The house settled a soft groan in the rafters, a tick in the pipes, as if making room for whatever would happen at 3. Emma reached for Oliver's hand again. "We wait," she said. He nodded. "We wait. And before we find out what the radio reveals at 3, subscribe and ring the bell, because here on Years Ago Stories, the past has a way of speaking when we're ready to listen." The house seemed to hold its breath as the hours ticked forward. Emma and Oliver sat in the dim kitchen, lit only by the faint bulb over the stove and the occasional glow of passing headlights outside. The radio remained still, its dial dark, its grill silent. Yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the silence itself was charged, like the pause between notes in a song. At 2:15, Oliver yawned, rubbing his eyes. Maybe it was just an electrical thing, a surge or something. Emma shook her head. That voice wasn't electricity. It was her. The clock ticked toward 3, each second sharp in the quiet. At exactly 3, the radio gave a sudden pop. The dial light flared weakly, then steadied, casting amber across the kitchen walls. Static rushed out in a low hiss, like waves crashing on a distant shore. Then the chime. 3 slow, bell-like tones rang out, not from the clock, but from within the static itself. Oliver straightened. Emma's breath caught. The voice followed. "Emma, sweetheart, if you've found this, it means the house is still ours. It means you're safe. And it means you're old enough now to hear the rest." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. It wasn't just her mother's voice. It was her mother's voice as a young woman, vibrant and sure, recorded in a time Emma had never known her. The static crackled, then steady. "I hid something in the kitchen, the place I loved most. Behind the radio. There's more than screws. There's a box. In that box is a part of me I couldn't share when I was alive. My story, my truth. If you're hearing this, it's because I wanted you to know who I was before I was your mother." Emma's eyes blurred with tears. The words were surreal, her mother, speaking across time, confessing secrets she had never dared to voice. The message wavered. Don't be afraid of what you find. Every life has chapters. Some we live out loud, some we keep hidden. This is mine, and it belongs to you now. The dial flickered, sputtered, then steadied again. Oliver leaned closer, whispering, "Grandma, she left us a recording? Like a treasure map?" Emma exhaled shakily. "Not just a map. A key." The boy looked at the back panel again, screwdriver in hand. "Should we open it now?" Emma hesitated. Her heart wanted to rush ahead, but her mother's voice had carried caution as well as invitation. "Not yet," the voice had said earlier. "Wait for the chime." And the chime had only just rung. "Let's wait," Emma whispered. "There might be more." The radio hissed, then began to hum. A soft tune threaded through, different from the lullaby before. This was livelier, with notes of joy and longing entwined. Emma knew it instantly. It was the song her mother had played on the piano when Emma was a child, the one that always filled the house with light. Her mother's voice returned, faint but clear. I recorded this when I was 19. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted the world to know my music. But life had other plans. Emma pressed her palm to the radio. Mom, why didn't you tell me? The music faltered, swallowed by static. A final line pierced through. If you find the box, you'll know the rest. Then the dial light blinked once, twice, and died. Silence reclaimed the kitchen. Oliver exhaled loudly. Well, that was definitely not electricity. Emma laughed through her tears. A fragile sound. No, that was her. And she wants us to find something. She glanced at the back of the radio. Screws waiting. Secrets inside. Her hands itched to open it, but fear pressed them still. Was she ready to uncover who her mother had been before she was just Mom? Oliver slid the screwdriver across the table toward her. Whenever you're ready. Emma touched the tool, then withdrew her hand. She looked at her son, at the photo on the table, at the radio that had become a bridge between generations. Tomorrow, she said softly. We'll open it tomorrow. The house seemed to sigh in agreement, the old walls creaking as though shifting closer to listen. Morning light filtered into the kitchen, gilding the old radio in gold. Emma sat at the table, chin propped on her hand, staring at the thing as if it might spring to life at any moment. Oliver appeared with the screwdriver still clutched like a knight's sword, eager to begin. Are we really going to open it today? He asked. Emma nodded slowly. She told us to. The message said there's a box inside, and if Mom wanted me to find it, then we have to try. Oliver knelt beside the radio, unscrewing the rusted bolts. Each turn squealed, as though the radio disliked being opened after decades of silence. Finally, the back panel fell away with a hollow clatter. Dust rose, carrying the faint smell of old paper. Inside, wedged behind the speaker, was a small tin box wrapped in brown cloth. Emma reached for it with trembling fingers, brushing cobwebs aside. The box was warm, strangely warm, as if it had been waiting, pulsing faintly with life. She set it on the table. Oliver leaned close. Open it, Mom. Emma hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside lay 3 items: a spool of magnetic tape, a folded letter sealed in wax, and a black and white photograph. The tape gleamed faintly, its reels intact but delicate. An audio recording, Oliver breathed, like a message in a bottle. Emma unfolded the photograph. It showed a young woman, her mother at 19, smiling shyly beside a microphone. Behind her was a piano, its keys bright in the studio light. Emma's throat tightened. She had never seen her mother like this, so full of possibility, not yet weighed down by the roles of wife, mother, or caretaker. The letter remained sealed, its wax imprinted with a small rose emblem. Emma traced it with her finger but didn't break it. Not yet. Oliver rummaged through the attic until he found an old reel-to-reel player. They threaded the tape carefully, Emma's hands shaking as she flipped the switch. The machine whirred. Then the room filled with the crisp crackle of youth. Her mother's voice poured out bright, confident, alive. This is Margaret Whitmore, 19 years old, and this is my song. If anyone ever hears it, I hope you'll remember me not just as a mother or a wife, but as a girl who dreamed. Then music, her mother singing, her voice soaring through the decades. It was tender and strong, filled with longing. Emma pressed a hand to her chest, eyes brimming. She really wanted to be heard, Emma whispered. The song ended, followed by her mother's voice again, softer this time. If Emma is listening, I want you to know, I gave up music when life asked me to choose, but it never stopped living in me. I left this tape so you could hear who I was before the world told me who to be. Emma closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She had always known her mother hum tunes, but never imagined the depth of the voice she was hearing now. Oliver stared at the player, awestruck. Grandma sounds incredible, like she could have been famous. Emma nodded. She could have, but she gave it up. For us, for me. She lifted the sealed letter, weighing it in her hands. The tape had given her mother's voice back. The letter, she knew, would give her mother's heart. But part of her wasn't ready. Not yet. Emma set the letter down gently. Tomorrow, she said. We'll open it tomorrow. Tonight, we let her song stay with us. Oliver nodded, though disappointment flickered in his eyes. He leaned against his mother, and together they listened to the tape again. The young woman's voice weaving through the kitchen, filling every corner with echoes of dreams long hidden. The radio sat quietly beside them, its duty complete for now. But Emma felt it wasn't finished. The story was only beginning to unfold. The letter sat untouched on the table all night, its wax seal glowing faintly in the lamp's light. Emma could hardly sleep each time she closed her eyes. Her mother's youthful voice returned singing, confessing, daring to be remembered. By morning, the decision was made. Emma poured 2 cups of tea, set one before Oliver, and slid the letter between them. Today, she said softly. Oliver nodded, eyes bright. Do it, Mom. Emma's fingers trembled as she cracked the seal. The paper unfolded slowly. The ink inside faded but neat, each word penned with the care of someone writing into the future. She drew a breath and began to read aloud. My dearest Emma, if you are reading this, it means the radio has kept its promise. It means you are ready. I want you to know who I was before the weight of duty pressed me into silence. Emma's voice caught, but she pressed on. When I was 19, I dreamed of stages, of music halls, of people listening to me sing. I had an offer to study in the city, to make a life of music. But then I found out I was expecting you. Emma froze, the words slicing through her like a blade. She looked at Oliver, whose mouth hung open. Her hands shook as she continued. I chose you. I gave up the scholarship, the recording, the life I thought was mine. I do not regret it, Emma. Not once. But I do regret never telling you why I sometimes hummed in the kitchen, why my eyes lingered on the piano and shop windows. It was not longing for a life without you. It was longing for the girl I once was. Tears blurred Emma's sight. Her mother had never spoken of this. She had known sacrifice was involved in raising her, but never imagined how deep it ran. Emma read further, voice unsteady. There was someone else too. A man who believed in my voice, who encouraged me to chase the dream. He asked me to follow him to the city, but when I realized I carried you, I stayed. He left. Perhaps he still wonders why. I hope he forgave me, but I never told him the truth that my silence was my choice to protect you. Oliver leaned forward. Mom, Grandma had another love? Emma wiped her eyes. It seemed so, but her choice was me, always me. The room grew thick with silence. The weight of hidden history pressed around them, fragile and immense. Emma set the letter down, head in her hands. All these years, I thought she was just ordinary. Just a mother humming in the kitchen. And now, I see she was extraordinary. She gave up everything to be that ordinary. Oliver placed a hand on hers. She wanted you to know now, maybe because you'll understand better than you would have before. Emma nodded slowly. She had spent much of her life choosing safety, routine, the steady path. And perhaps her mother had wanted her to see that dreams, even sacrificed, still mattered. As if summoned by the weight of truth, the radio crackled suddenly. The dial glowed faint amber. A familiar voice, warm and steady, slipped through the static. Emma, if you've read the letter, then you know. Don't be angry. Don't grieve what I lost. Celebrate what I gained. You, my daughter, my greatest song. Emma's tears fell freely now. She pressed a hand to the radio, whispering, I hear you, Mom, I hear you. Oliver leaned closer, whispering as if the voice could hear him too. We both hear you. The static softened. then dissolved into a faint melody, the same piano chords from the tape, looping once before fading. The dial light blinked twice and went dark. Emma folded the letter carefully, placing it back into the tin box. She trusted us with her truth. That means we can't bury it again. Oliver nodded firmly. We won't. We'll keep it alive. Emma looked toward the garden, where sunlight danced on dew. For the first time, she understood what her mother meant when she said the radio only played when the house was listening. It wasn't just the house, it was the family, ready at last to hear. That evening, the house seemed restless, as though the very walls had heard the letter and were waiting for what came next. Emma placed the tin box back on the table, her fingers brushing the photograph of her mother at 19. The girl in the picture looked so alive, so different from the woman Emma had known in her later years. Oliver sat cross-legged on the floor, fiddling with the reel-to-reel machine. Do you think there's more on the tape? Emma shook her head. No. That part of her story she saved for the letter, but she glanced at the radio, silent and dark once again. I don't think it's finished speaking. At midnight, the radio flared to life without warning. The dial glowed brighter than before, filling the kitchen with an amber light that painted the walls like fire. The static surged, then softened into a low hum. Emma and Oliver rushed to the table, hands clasped. The voice came clear, stronger than ever. Emma, if you've made it this far, then you've heard the truth. I wanted to sing, but I chose to be your mother. That choice shaped me, but it did not erase me, and I don't want you to erase yourself either. Emma's breath hitched. Her mother's tone carried both firmness and tenderness, like a hand guiding hers across piano keys. The voice continued, fading in and out. There's one last thing. The drawer beneath the radio. Slide it open. Oliver blinked. There's a drawer? Emma crouched and felt along the radio's base. Sure enough, her fingers found a thin seam she had never noticed. With a push, a small panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a folded piece of sheet music, the ink smudged but legible. Emma lifted it carefully. Across the top, in her mother's flowing hand, were the words, Emma's song. Her throat tightened. She wrote this for me. The sheet held only half a melody, unfinished. Notes curved upward, then stopped midline, as though her mother had run out of time or courage. At the bottom of the page, in faint pencil, were the words, For her, when she is ready. Emma pressed the page to her chest. She wanted me to finish it. That's why the radio came alive. That's why she left all of this. Oliver's eyes shone. Then let's do it. We'll finish her song. The radio hummed again, as if in approval. Her mother's voice returned, quieter now, fragile yet determined. Emma, you are my greatest creation, but not my only one. Music still lives in you. Don't silence it as I did. Sing. Write. Live out loud. Promise me you won't hide who you are. Emma sobbed openly, clutching the music sheet. I promise, Mom. I promise. Emma laid the sheet music flat on the table. This is ours now, yours and mine. We'll finish her song together. Oliver grinned, eyes wet. I'll help with the chords. Grandma always said I had an ear for rhythm. They laughed softly through their tears. The kitchen, once filled with shadows, now brimmed with purpose. The story was no longer a hidden secret, it was a gift, passed from one generation to the next. Emma folded the music carefully and placed it in the tin box beside the photograph and letter. Tomorrow, she whispered, we start. Her song will finally be heard. Oliver reached for her hand. And when it is, she'll be listening. The radio sat silent, its duty fulfilled. But Emma could swear the air hummed faintly, as though the house itself had learned the tune. The morning after the radio's final hum, Emma woke to a house that felt changed. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was gentle, like a quilt laid over her shoulders. For the first time in years, she didn't feel haunted by the unfinished parts of her relationship with her mother. Instead, she felt invited to continue them. Oliver was already in the kitchen. The sheet music spread across the table. A pencil rested behind his ear, and he tapped rhythms against his mug as though he'd been awake for hours. "Mom," he said brightly, "listen to this." He hummed a line, filling in the gap where the notes trailed off. The melody rose, hopeful and new. Emma froze, stunned. It was imperfect, raw, but it fit, like a missing puzzle piece slipping into place. Her eyes filled. "That's it," she whispered. "That's exactly what she wanted." They spent the afternoon at the piano, Oliver plinking keys, Emma scribbling lines of lyrics on scrap paper. At first, she doubted herself. "I'm not a songwriter," she murmured, but Oliver shook his head. "You don't have to be. You just have to tell her story." The words came slowly, then faster. They wrote of gardens and kitchens, of lullabies and lantern light, of love given up and love that endured anyway. Every phrase felt like stitching another seam in a torn fabric. When they played it through for the first time, Emma's voice cracked on the opening line. But Oliver caught her eye, grinned, and started the next measure. Together, their voices filled the house, shaky at first, then stronger. The notes drifted upward, as though the rafters themselves leaned down to listen. That evening, Emma lit the lantern her mother had always kept in the window. Its glow spilled across the garden, illuminating the roses damp with dew. She sat on the porch, guitar in her lap, and sang the completed song. Neighbors paused at the sidewalk. A couple of them stood silently, listening. No one had ever heard Emma sing before, not like this. When she finished, the small crowd clapped politely, then drifted on. But Emma wasn't singing for them. She was singing for the woman who had left her a message hidden in static and silence. As the last note faded, the radio in the kitchen crackled faintly. Emma and Oliver rushed inside. The dial glowed once brief, soft, then darkened. No voice followed, no melody, just a single heartbeat of light. Emma touched the casing gently. "Goodbye, Mom," she whispered, and the radio stayed silent, finally at rest. Weeks passed. The sheet music was framed and hung in the living room, next to the photo of Emma's mother at 19. Oliver convinced Emma to record the song, not for fame, but for family. They burned CDs, shared them with cousins, tucked copies into drawers. Each person who heard it said the same thing. "It sounds like her." Emma realized that the radio had not just given her back her mother's voice, it had given her back her own. One night, she sat on the porch swing with Oliver beside her. "Do you know why she left all this for us?" she asked. Oliver shrugged. "So we'd know her story?" Emma nodded, then added, "And so we'd remember not to bury ours. She hid hers because she thought she had to. She left us the radio so we wouldn't repeat that mistake." Oliver leaned against her shoulder. "Then we won't." The lantern glowed steady in the window. For the first time, Emma felt that the house itself was smiling. Life had taught Emma that people often vanish twice, once when they leave the world, and again when their stories are forgotten. Her mother had fought against that second vanishing. She had left threads in lullabies, in sayings about the house listening, in a radio stubborn enough to wait. Now Emma understood. Memory is not just remembering, it is carrying forward. It is finishing songs left half-written. It is telling the truth aloud, so it does not die in silence. And so, dear listener, Emma's story asks us all, what unfinished songs lie in your family? What voices are waiting to be heard again? What stories are still hidden in the drawers and attics of your lives? Share in the comments a story, an object, or even a song that carries the memory of someone you love. Let it live here too. And don't forget to subscribe to Years Ago Stories and ring the bell, because every forgotten melody, every hidden letter, and every old radio has a lesson worth remembering. The next story might just echo your own.